Ask yourselves this question: why purchase an animal from a pet store or breeder when you can adopt an animal and ultimately save their life? Across the country, millions of cats and dogs are being euthanized in the United States. Purchasing pets from pet stores or breeders only encourages breeders to produce more and more of these animals. To make my case, I will first explain how adopting a pet will ultimately save their life. Next, I will explain when pet owners adopt from shelters, they are slowing down and cutting the profit for puppy and kitten mills. And finally, I will explain when purchasing a pet because of its breed is highly unnecessary. The problem is when you buy a pet, you are not only denying a homeless pet a home, but you are supporting an industry that thrives on shortchanging the welfare of animals. Puppy and kitten mills, which sell to pet stores, are in business to make a profit, so they churn out these puppies and kittens as fast as they can. These animals are often in ill health and have problems like poor socialization skills due to lack of human companionship and genetic defects due to inbreeding. These facilities repeatedly impregnate these female dogs and cats and spend their entire lives in cages without any human companionship. The moms of these puppies and kittens are kept to be bred for years and years and have little hope of ever joining a family. And after they're no longer profitable, they are discarded, either killed, abandoned, or sold at auction. So adopting a shelter animal means you don't support such cruel practices. When you adopt animals, they are neutered or spayed, have their first shots, and are microchipped. Most of the time when you purchase from a pet store or breeder, they are not spayed or neutered, they are not microchipped, and have not gotten their first shots. Many pets that aren't spayed or neutered often contribute to the problem of unwanted animals, which can lead to more being left at shelters. Adopting an animal from a shelter means that you don't support these cruel practices, and these spayed or neutered animals won't contribute anymore to the unwanted animals. Now let me move on to my point about how adopting animals slows down puppy and kitten mills. This simple practice of adopting decreases the homeless animal population, creates more space at shelters and rescue organizations, and finally reduces demand that supports puppy mills. In an article by the Humane Society in 2016, each year an estimated 2.7 million adoptable dogs and cats are euthanized because simply people don't want to adopt dogs and there are too many animals in shelters. The number of euthanized animals could be reduced dramatically if more people adopted pets instead of purchasing them. When you adopt, you save a loving animal and make them a part of your family. Then you clear up shelter space, which can be also used for future animals to come. Now let me discuss my third and final point. Many people who purchase pets may feel they want a certain breed that best fits their family or subscribe to misinformation about shelters and shelter animals. Purebred dogs suffer from the effects of inbreeding. By definition, inbreeding is the production of offspring from the mating or breeding of individuals or organisms that are closely related genetically. While purebred animals are much coveted for their beauty, there are many problems that come with a pure lineage. Purebred animals tend to have more health problems. The main problem comes with the simple fact that to create a purebred puppy, you need 2 dogs from the exact same gene pool. This gene pool is already limited, but many breeders will use dogs from the exact same family to create more of these dogs. As many of these gene pools are closed, the risk of genetic defects rises significantly with each successive coupling. In an article by PetMD in 2014, defects for dogs include a higher risk of cancer and tumors, eye and heart diseases, joint and bone disorders, immune and neurological diseases, and even epilepsy. Animals undergo full physicals when they are brought into shelters, and many shelters have veterinary clinics on site to help with any medical issues that may arise. Shelter staff also ensures that animals are in top shape before they are adopted. This is not the same case for pet stores. Most pet stores and even some breeders do not offer these animals the same health services prior to adoption. But if these pet lovers were given an opportunity to learn the full range of adoption benefits, it might be enough to change their minds and save more lives and transform their communities and community shelters. Breeding animals for the sake of profit or simply because someone wants a certain type of breed is highly unnecessary and highly unsustainable. Not only are you giving more animals a second chance, but the cost of your adoption goes directly towards helping other animals that might desperately need it. So let's review my 3 main points. I discussed to adopt pets instead of purchasing them from a pet store or breeder because when you purchase a pet, you are supporting an industry shortchanging the welfare of animals. Then I explained how adopting from shelters slows down the profit for puppy and kitten mills. And lastly, I discussed why purebred animals aren't necessarily better or healthier animals. So the question remains, why are we producing more dogs and cats when there are already so many wonderful animals to adopt? Purchasing pets from pet stores or breeders only encourages these animals. Purchasing pets from pet stores or breeders only encourages breeders to produce more and more of these animals, and this threat must be addressed. Thank you.
All right, Sarah, in the introduction, I think you probably said what the proposition is, but it's not distinct as the main claim of the speech. It actually sounds like it's, part of the attention device that you're presenting. So that needs to be a little clearer. You do have a pretty clear preview of the supporting structure, however, and I thought that you signposted that pretty well. On the second and the third points in your argument, you kind of dove into the argument almost immediately once you got through those that preview, and so you probably need to pace yourself a little bit there and remind us again about the main proposition, which I think ends up being something that we have to infer a heck of a lot more than it is clearly stated. The premises of your argument are all explained. They're not necessarily documented. You have described horrific conditions in puppy and kitten mills, and I have no source or information to suggest that that's true. I don't doubt that it's true. I've seen stories like this, but you know what? You need to make the argument, and so you need to provide us with some proof that that is in fact the case. The notion that pet stores acquire all of their animals through what we might think of as a puppy mill as opposed to a breeder that is interested in the breed and breeds for the purpose of the love of the breed, which I believe there probably are plenty of out there. You need to kind of explain how would we know these sorts of things, or what kind of information is there to show those sorts of things. I think that there's just a lot of assumption in the argument instead of demonstrating the argument is true. In fact, I only heard two sources that were being cited in the presentation. We had the Humane Society quote from 2016, and then there was a Pet MD quote that you gave not too far after that, talking about what the risks are of animals from those kinds of places. Those were good sources, and I think that that's good information, but I'm just wondering why it wasn't distributed and why there wasn't more information in other places in the argument that's a little bit problematic. The reasoning that you're presenting seems like it's fairly sound. The notion that if there's less demand, then there's going to be less attempt to fill that demand. That makes perfect sense. Although I didn't hear any information about how many animals are adopted from shelters on a daily basis. I didn't hear any comparative information about how many animals are purchased from pet stores, which is where the main objection is. So I don't have any base for making a comparison between the two, and that seems like it would be something that you'd want to have for an argument. Now, as a persuasive speech, I think this is probably very effective. As an argument, it needs a lot more documentation in some of the premises. It's nicely organized, so that part I think is solid. I think you do a pretty good job at presenting, although I do think that you're going a little bit quick, especially in the first half of the speech, and you want to pace yourself a little more. All right, thank you.